Alright, so let's take a look at some simplification problems using all the rules. So let's just to recall the rules, let's write the rules down. So the rules are, we have the product rule, which says x to the n, x to the m is x to the n plus m. We have the quotient rule, which says x to the n divided by x to the m is equal to x to the n minus m. We have the negative exponent rule, which says x to the minus n is equal to 1 over x to the n, and 1 over x to the minus n is equal to x to the n. Then we have the zero exponent rule, and that is anything to the 0th power is 1. And honestly, the power the power rule of a quotient and the power rule of a product, those are really you can sort of put them both together, and if you just remember the expanded power rule, right? So if you want to remember one rule that has both of those together, then it will be the expanded power rule. All right, and so the expanded power rule says if you had a x b y to the n, then that's a to the n x to the n and b to the n y to the n. And then there's one more rule, and that is the rule power rule for exponents. And that is x to the n to the m n times m. Alright, so I know this seems like a lot of rules. My suggestion is to put these rules on a 3x5 card that you can have in front of you as you do your problems. Just remember, all things are governed by the order of operations. So everything is order of operations. Okay, so order of operation rules everything, and these are multiplications and divisions, so groups will always go first. Alright, so having said that, let's take a look at a problem of simplifying. So simplify. Simplify, right? And here's the problem. We have 25 a squared, a cubed b to the 5 divided by 5 a to the 4th b to the 2nd, and all of that to the 3rd power. So as I said, order of operations rules. So the first thing we're going to do is work inside right there. So I honestly, when I'm doing these problems inside right there, I find it easier just to line everybody up that would match and sort of think of them separately. So I would like to see 25 over 5 dealt with, and then a to the 3 and the a to the 4. I know there's a big gap there, but it doesn't matter. I just want to have space to mess with this. B to the 5 and b to the 2nd. So within those outer parentheses, I can work each of these things out. So this is 5. This is the quotient rule. So that's a to the minus 1. This also the quotient rule. So b to the 3. Okay, and now I can use the so all of this from here to here was the quotient rule, right? Okay, so now I'm going to use the expanded power rule and then rewrite this as 5 to the third, because there's a 1 here, 3 times 1, a to the minus 3, b to the 3 times 3, which is 9. Okay, so I'm very, very close to being done. So the only things that I have to finish up, clean up really, is this. Because I can actually work that out, and this, because I can't leave any negative exponents in my final answer. So first let's deal with the 5. So 5 times 5 is 25, times 5 is 125. A to the negative 3, well, if it's negative, it moves from numerator to denominator or denominator to numerator, so in this case it's going to move into the denominator. And b to the 9 does not change. And you could write this, since this is all multiplication, you could multiply the denominators, multiply the numerators, and write it more as a single fraction like this. And that's the answer. So let's do one more, and we'll explore more problems, of course. Let's do this one. Example, simplify. So this time again we have 18 negative, throw a negative in there, x squared, y to the 8th, 9, x to the 5th, y to the 4th, and all of that divided by 3. Oh, excuse me, to the power of 3. So again, I'm going to work inside the group because that's the first place, and I'm going to be careful about the way I write this. So I'm going to space myself out so I can pair everybody up, group everybody who has to be grouped. So the 18 is with the 9, the x squared is with the x to the 5th, and the y to the 8th is with the y to the 4th, and of course there is this 3, and so this gives me negative 2. This gives me, okay, so that's x2 minus 5, x to the negative 3. This gives me y to the 4th. And don't forget, you have that 3. Alright, so what does this give me? This is, so remember the exponent there is 1, and it's really all for all of that, right? Because the parentheses covers that negative. Alright, so really what we have here is negative 2 to the third, y to the, x to the negative 9, and y to the 12th. And again, we are to the place where we need to work this out because we can, the numbers, and we can't leave negative exponents in our final answer. Alright, so let's do each of those. So negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, right? So we can write it off to the side if that's difficult to figure out. So that's a positive 4, that's a negative 8. So it's negative 8, and that x drops to the denominator, and that y stays in the numerator. And since this is all multiplication, we can just simply multiply across, minus 8y to the 12th, and multiply across the denominator and get x9. You're done. Alright, so we'll look at more examples coming up in the next video.